This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you courtesy of First Horizon Bank.
Hi, I'm Tabitha Scott, a human dynamics expert and the host of Bucket Listening, brought to you by First Horizon Bank. I hope you will join me as I sit down with people from all walks of life to learn how their passions, insights, and persistence have helped them turn their bucket list into a beautiful life.
Tune in on your preferred platform or visit firsthorizon.com/podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us on today's show. Got another good show for you. I love the stories that you're about to hear. The stories of discovery, the stories of, I didn't even know we had a product here. I didn't even know we had a business here until they tried something, and that's what we're going to get into. Before that, though, What's Working is your radio show / podcast designed to bring you insights into the workforce, the workplace, and marketplace trends. Our goal is to find guests that can talk about trends in such a way that you and I can understand them, understand what they mean, understand what their implications are, what the trends' implications are, and most importantly, we can do something with the information that we get. Our goal is to make everybody who listens a little bit better at whatever it is that they do through the stories told on this show. So, GMO, genetically modified something. GMO is a big subject matter in the world of people that are very discerning about their food. They fear a little bit of the chemicals or the processes that make this food, and it may be detrimental to themselves. As you can tell, I'm not an expert on what GMO is and how it works and everything, but I'm aware enough of it to know that there are many of those out there concerned with it. The other side of GMO is non-GMO, and that seems to be a sweet spot in the food marketplace. Non-GMO products. In my hand is a bag of grits. And if you're not from the Deep South, and you may have heard of these things, they're crushed and ground cornmeal. And I am a great fan of them. I'm born and raised down here in Mobile, Alabama, and have been eating them my entire life. Around Thanksgiving break, several weeks ago, I got a sample of these products and cooked them up. My wife and I did. She's from North Carolina. She also appreciates the grit meal, the products. And we tried them, and man, it was good. It really was. She and I both looked at one another and said, now this is different. To add to that, we didn't eat them all. We put a bit of them back in the refrigerator, let them sit, and the next night we pulled them out and we used them to make shrimp and grits. And that grit product lasted overnight very well. And that's going to be the focus of today's show. Not our grit meal, what we did, but this non-GMO corn product that's grown here in South Alabama by two brothers who discovered some kernels, some seed kernels in the freezer in the barn that their grandfather, maybe great-grandfather, had left there a while back. And they began to experiment with these things. They planted some. Most of them came up, and now they're selling this non-GMO heirloom corn product, the grits, the cornmeal, the fish fry, the things that come out of it, all over the Southeast, and it's continuing to grow. They've been featured in Southern Living magazine, which we'll learn more about, and it fueled the growth for them, and I was grateful that they're local enough to come into the studio, sit down, and tell me the story firsthand. This is another one of these What's Working with Cam Marston stories that I feel just so fortunate to be able to meet the people that are doing this, see the expressions on their faces as they tell the stories that have surprised even them about the growth of their product and their service. And it seems like a lot of these things are food-oriented, and I'm grateful to be able to spread their messages. Anyway, their products are now served in restaurants in New Orleans. They're served all throughout the Gulf Coast. They're carried retail, and it began with about 100 seeds that they found in a freezer in the back of the barn. Yep, Good story coming up. You'll meet Josh and Jared Higginbotham when we come back from break. Their product, their company is Bayou Cora Heirloom Corn, and it's going to be a good one. Anyway, you're listening to What's Working. Thank you again for joining us. If you want to find this as a podcast, go to what'sworkingcam.com. When we come back from break, I'll be sitting with Josh and Jared. We're talking about their remarkable story of Bayou Cora Heirloom Corn. We'll be right back.
This is Seth Cherniak, Vice President of Branch Development for the Jeffrey Matthews Financial Group. If you're an experienced financial advisor wanting the freedom of independence, but aren't sure making that jump is right for you, we should talk. Jeffrey Matthews has developed a successful program for advisors who don't want to be 1099 contractors and don't want to pay for their own overhead. We're looking for advisors who want the freedom to run their business the way they see fit, with the support that comes with a W-2 firm. If you're interested in joining one of our branches, or if you want to open your own branch as a full-time employee, let's chat. Our compensation plan is one of the most competitive among all W-2 firms, big or small. Reach out to us today at jeffreymatthews.com, connect with me, Seth Cherniak, on LinkedIn, or click the link in the podcast.
Jeffrey Matthews Financial Group, member FINRA, SIPC. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston saying thank you again for continuing to join us on the show. Today we've got two brothers here telling the story that I've read on the website that is just love it. I just love it. These are the types of stories that absolutely pique my interest. Sitting in with me is Josh and Jared Higginbotham, brothers, who are running Bayou Cora Farms, and they grow and sell an heirloom corn and all the different products that come from the corn. We're going to talk about this fantastic story that got them, their family, into Alabama many generations ago, and then this demand for the corn. As we walked into the studio, the guy down the office was already very interested in it, wanted cards, wanted information on where to get it. It's a good sign. Josh and Jared, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to What's Working.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So tell me, pick one of you guys. Tell me how this corn came to be, where it came from, kind of this highlight reel that I saw on your website of the story of the Bayou Cora Farms.
Well, I'll kind of put it all in a nutshell. Farming and the farm itself has been in our family for generations. Our sixth great-grandfather came from Marengo County, around Demopolis area, came to Baldwin County in 1875.
Mm-hmm.
He had some family living here. They settled in an area outside of Magnolia Springs called Vernon Park, kind of between Magnolia Springs and Bon Secours. And when they came, they brought down an heirloom variety of corn. They settled that area and they started growing the corn. When they grew it, they didn't grind it like we're grinding today. They used a lot of it for fodder, which is animal feed.
Yeah.
They would eat some during what they call the milk stage, which is about 2 to 3 weeks, like we would eat sweet corn these days. But most of it was used for animal feed. So anyways, they passed the corn down from generation to generation. Each son grew the corn. And our grandfather and his brothers farmed big for years and years. And then we were born in 1987. At that time, the agricultural industry was kind of dwindling down in the United States.
Oh, yeah. I remember Farm Aid and all that kind of stuff. The timing corresponds very well. 1987, John Cougar Mellencamp.
Yeah. So it was a hard time for farmers. So they took that corn and put it in a freezer because they really didn't have anything to do with it. They were just kind of selling it to the area for animal feed, stuff like that.
So how much did they put in a freezer? A bag?
They put about a gallon size bag.
Uh-huh.
That's about how much they had left over for the years. And then in 2011, I believe, our grandfather and his two brothers were talking, And they were trying to decide if they had any more of the corn left. And our great uncle said, yeah, I have, that bag left in the freezer. And they said, wonder if it's still any good. So grandfather said, well, go get some kernels and put them in the ground and see what happens.
It's an excellent way to test it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's seed germination right there. And our grandfather, remember, he planted 98 kernels exactly, and 96 came up.
No kidding.
I think that's pretty good germination after sitting in there for 24 years. 24 years.
Is it unusual for a kernel to sit in a freezer for that long and still maintain its capability?
No, they have the seed bank in Iceland or where it is.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
they can seeds can stay for hundreds of years. So it doesn't hurt it to stay in there that long.
So Josh, when did you guys decide this is a product, this is a business here? My grandfather, my sixth generation great-grandfather, found a business in it, but I think we can do something ourselves here. When did that idea occur to you?
Well, actually, it was Jared that kind of came up with it. We knew that there was, at that time, kind of a start for demand for, heirloom products. And we knew that this corn could be ground into, cornmeal, grits, and corn flour. So Jared said, why don't we just try to grind it and go to the local farmer's market? There's a farmer's market over in Foley, Alabama that we went to. So at that time, we didn't have any of the equipment that we have right now. We had a blender. And so Jared took some of the kernels and he put it in there and we ground it to what the consistency we thought would be good for cornmeal.
A blender.
Yeah.
Just like I'd make a smoothie in.
Exactly. I think we got it off an infomercial on television.
It was our grandmother's. So yeah. I think I might have messed it up.
Yeah.
So Jared took that and he ground it into, we had 21-pound bags of cornmeal. That was the only product we had at the time because at that time we didn't have a sifter or anything to separate the different grinds. So we took it, we went to the farmer's market and we had 21-pound bags and we sold out within about an hour and a half.
Did that surprise you?
It did, actually. We knew that there might be some kind of interest in it. We didn't know that it would be that quick and that people would keep coming back to us. It was on Saturday, so we went every Saturday for a long time.
What were people saying when they found the product? Were they saying, thank goodness this is here? Were they saying, tell me more about this? Was it curiosity? Was it discovery? Tell me what your customers were seeing when they saw your products.
It was a little bit of both, I think. I mean, I think some people already knew about the heirloom drive and they were like, oh, heirloom cornmeal, this is something I really want. And I'd probably say the other half were thinking, this is something new. I've never seen or heard about this before. I want to give it a try. So It was about half and half.
So let's make sure I'm clear and the listeners are clear. Define for me, one of you, heirloom corn or any heirloom product. What does it mean?
So our corn is non-GMO. It's an old pre-1940 variety. So anything that's never been modified and it's before around 1940 is considered heirloom. So that seed has never been cross-pollinated with any other variety of corn since then. So we keep that intact. We plant our fields at least a mile or more away from any other corn that's growing right now. So we keep that seed quality intact. So anything pre-1940 is considered heirloom corn.
So you started out with 100 kernels or nearly 100 kernels. Would you say 98 and 96 came up? Yep. What's the production like now? I know you aren't counting kernels anymore.
No, we're counting acres now.
Acres, yeah. Tell me what you're planting now.
Right now, last year we planted around 65 acres. Our goal next year and continuing is to get pretty much as much land as possible. This corn does not produce the yield that a lot of the new age corn. I mean, a lot of our cousins are farmers and they're making 250, 280 bushel corn. Our corn, if it produces 40 to 45 bushels an acre, that's really good for us. So we have to expand and grow more land to be able to get the same amount of yield that some of the other farmers do.
Is it hard to make money with that limited yield?
It's not hard to make money because the amount, so we gauge a lot of our product by pound. And if you're looking at bushels, there's 56 pounds of corn in 1 bushel. So our 1 pound of corn is worth more than a regular farmer's 1 pound of corn. Mm-hmm. So there's more to the process of what we do and everything, like Josh said, we have to keep it a distance away from other corn and that kind of stuff. We deal with more pests, we deal with more weeds and stuff like that because we don't spray or, herbicide or pesticide or anything like that. So, but it is profitable because it is a specialty product.
Who else out there is growing heirloom corn? I've never heard of it. I'm not in your world. So there could be 1,000 people doing it. What is the market like?
No one around here in this area, I say, Alabama Gulf Coast is doing what we do. There's some up in North Alabama. The hub of what we are doing with heirloom grain, especially corn, is South Carolina and North Carolina. That's kind of where it all kind of took off, and that's the hub. When we were researching farms to try to see what we wanted to do, we based our model and ideas off of what they were doing in that area. So no one around here is kind of doing what we're doing.
And it's referred to from sometimes, and I probably get in trouble for this, Indian corn is what I've seen it referenced.
Yeah, they call it Indian corn because it's all the multicolored corn.
Yeah, my mother used to look for that around Thanksgiving time to try to find it to decorate the table. And she always struggled to find it because it's, I guess it's rare, which is what we're talking about here. Folks, you're listening to What's Working. We're going to go to break, but prior to break, I want to remind you about Bucket Listening, that podcast that I'm such a big fan of, put out by First Horizon Bank. The attitude is, why wait till you retire to begin on your bucket list? Let First Horizon Bank help you with that. You can find Bucket Listening on your favorite podcast sites, brought to you by First Horizon. We'll be right back.
This is Bill Eastet. I perfected my baking recipe behind my live music stage at my little restaurant in Fairhope, Alabama. We have custom-made smokers and small batch bacon made just for you. So if you're looking for the best bacon in America that has been cured, smoked, and even serenaded by songwriters, you definitely need to try Billy's Small Batch Bacon. www.billysbacon.com.
Bayou Cora Farms is based in Baldwin County, Alabama. The two brothers that are now running it are Josh and Jared Higginbotham. They come from a long lineage of farmers, and this particular magical corn, I'm talking like Jack and the Beanstalk here. You plant it, it'll grow up into the sky. This particular magical heirloom corn they found in a bag in a freezer in the back of a barn. Is that right? Something like that?
That's correct.
Yeah. And they are now, I just love this story, now have grown it. Did you say 40 acres?
No, well, this past year we grew 65 acres.
65 acres of corn and are selling it. Let's talk about this. Selling it across the Gulf Coast right now. Now, recognize, gentlemen, that there are people listening to this show all over the nation. And so when you and I say Fish River, when you and I say Baldwin County, there's somebody in Montana going, makes no sense to me. Let's keep those people in mind. So we'll talk about regionalities versus specific stuff. You took this corn, it became successful, it had a unique taste or flavor profile to it. You obviously are selling at retail. That's where I've seen it. I bought mine from the local grocery store. How did you begin the distribution? How did you begin approaching restaurants and retail locations? What was that like?
Well, like we said, we started out in the farmers market in our local area,
right.
And we did that for months, trying to build up just a clientele of people that were interested in this. And every once in a while we would hear people talk about local chefs that would come in there and check out the products and everything. And we got to talking to one, which you guys know is Chris Rainasek with the Noble South.
Yeah.
Chris would come in there and we would talk to him. And after a couple of weeks, he actually took a couple bags of ours and just fell in love with the cornmeal. So he was probably, I think, our first chef, our first client outside of the farmers market that kind of gave us that next step that was really interested in it. We had another vendor at the market that was friends with a baker in New Orleans, and he had started. He was our age. He had started a new artisan bakery there in New Orleans, and we got in touch with him shortly after that, and we started selling him the whole kernels, and he would grind it there himself. And he already had connections with about a dozen or more high-end restaurants in New Orleans. So as that was taking off and our corn was being sold over there, we were reaching out to more and more chefs, knowing that they were interested in what we had.
So this baker, that's interesting to me. This baker was interested in it, and he then transmitted it, for lack of a better term, into the stores or the restaurants rather that he was connected with.
Yeah, he did. He like I said, we sold them the whole kernel, so they had their own mill, a lot bigger than the mill we were using.
Yeah.
And they would sell the grits to the restaurants, but they also used the flour and the cornmeal in their baking process as well.
Have you been to New Orleans to try any of this, to say, hey, what are you doing with our stuff?
Yeah. When we would sell them about a ton each trip, a ton of corn each trip, and that lasted them about a month, maybe a month and a half.
No kidding. That seems like a big consumption of it.
It was. They, like I said, they had at least a dozen, maybe more restaurants at that time. It's grown now. And then every trip I would go over there, I would try to go to a different restaurant to taste what they were cooking with our grits and the flour and cornmeal and stuff.
Are you going to the restaurants anywhere and going through the front door, holding this bag, and I have in my hand here a 1-pound bag of Bayou Cora Farms heirloom grits, which my wife and I had around Thanksgiving, and I have since ordered 30 bags for Christmas gifts. Were you going into the restaurants, new restaurants, saying, hey, I'm leaving you some grits, some cornmeal, something like that? Were you trying to aggressively sell this stuff through the front door versus through the back door through food distributors?
We did, yeah. We tried to go to different restaurants that in New Orleans that weren't connected with the bakery we were using. We'd go in with just some sample bags and we'd give them a few and say, hey, this is who we are. This is a little bit different product than what you're probably trying right now, what you're using. So just give it a try. If you're interested, we deliver, and this is a product that your customers might be accustomed to, but they might not know about it. But it's a different flavor profile. It's a different product. Just try it and see if you like it. Getting
attention of those people, those chefs, those the heads of these restaurants is hard work.
It is.
They keep them sheltered in the back.
Yeah.
The staff has been told, as I'm told, do not let people back here, right? There are going to be salespeople coming through the front and the back door. Don't let them back here. So getting through to those people can be very difficult. Did you find a methodology?
Well, chefs love samples. So if you're saying, you try this out, we're not going to charge anything. We'll give you this if you need more to try to play around with it. And because it is different, it's a specialty product. We told them that, play around with it, see, what you like. And, the past several years, there's been a movement, especially here on the Gulf Coast, to buy more local products, specialty products. So they were interested in it.
So, I one of my favorite stories that's come off this radio show was from Lane Zerlot with Murder Point Oysters. And he would go into the back of the restaurants, find an open door, and just go in the back and start shucking oysters. Wouldn't speak to anyone, just start shucking oysters and setting them out on tables, on countertops. And people would come back and say, what are you doing? He said, I want you to try these oysters. And uninvited, just stepped in the back with a bushel of oysters and started shucking. I love that. It's a reality TV show in the waiting there. So what about retail distribution? So first, do you have distribution through food service distributors that would traditionally sell to restaurants?
We do, selling to Publix. We're in all the Publix stores in Alabama currently, and we use the Cahey distribution company, and we had to go through them as the facilitator to get into the Publix stores.
Yeah, and are you in Publix? Publix has got a lot of stores. So what does it take to get into all those stores? It's kind of one of those Walmart stories that I've heard. You always want to be in Walmart, but that first order could kill you because the volume that they ask for is not something that businesses of your size, of my size, would be available or able to do. Tell me about that first Publix order.
Oh, yes. It was all hands on deck for that first order for sure. Because you have to not only have enough to stock the stores initially, you have to have enough for back stock in the warehouse. So that was a huge order. So that took us, out of our comfort zone of what we were doing, just retail on the website. But we were able to supply that first order, and then KeHE actually ordered more product after that. They ship to specialty stores outside of our area. So Atlanta, Tennessee, north of that, they ship to different stores like that. They actually have some stores in Puerto Rico. We saw that they shipped it to Puerto Rico and England, actually. We saw a few of our products went over to across the sea.
No kidding. The Queen could be eating your cornmeal.
That's right. Hopefully.
I hope the Queen loves grits. I'm sure she does. I guess it's the whatever her title is now. I hope she loves the grits. What has been the biggest surprise for you in this whole process? I mean, I'm just going to leave it at that. What's been the biggest surprise from you, Jared? Let's start with you.
The biggest surprise? Oh, let me think. I mean, I would probably say the sheer interest. And I know that's kind of vague, but there's people that want this type of product. Like Josh said, it's non-GMO, it's open pollinated. We don't add anything to it. But especially the past couple of years, the people that want that are trying to find something different, that don't have all those additives, those people are everywhere. They're a lot more than you think. And they want not just that in their home, they want that in their restaurants. So that's been a big, interesting point for us, for the people of multiple ages, multiple different walks of life that want that type of product.
So when you say open pollinated, I'm imagining a bee, a butterfly, a hummingbird, whatever it is that pollinates these things. But what does that mean?
That means that we can save our seed from year to year and replant it. It doesn't have to come from a lab. It doesn't have to be, a hybrid that's cross-pollinated somewhere in a greenhouse. And then when we get the seed or the plant, when we harvest, we set aside some of our seed, we clean it, and that's going to be saved for next year.
How difficult is it for you to figure out how much to save?
That part is hard, considering we keep growing in different, leaps and bounds more than we thought. So that's we always have a reserve somewhere. We have to have extra.
But you want to sell more, but you have to have the discipline to set some aside.
Exactly. That's hard. That's hard.
Josh, when we come back from break, we'll start with you. What surprised you about this whole process thus far? And then we'll get into your plans for the future. It sounds like you guys have got a tiger by the tail and just trying to hang on. It'll be interesting to hear where you're going. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. I'm in the studio today with Josh and Jared Higginbotham. We'll be right back after this break.
This is Seth Cherniak, Vice President of Branch Development for the Jeffrey Matthews Financial Group. If you're an experienced financial advisor wanting the freedom of independence, but aren't sure making that jump is right for you, we should talk. Jeffrey Matthews has developed a successful program for advisors who don't want to be 1099 contractors and don't want to pay for their own overhead. We're looking for advisors who want the freedom to run their business the way they see fit, with the support that comes with a W-2 firm. If you're interested in joining one of our branches, or if you want to open your own branch as a full-time employee, let's chat. Our compensation plan is one of the most competitive among all W-2 firms, big or small. Reach out to us today at jeffreymatthews.com, connect with me, Seth Cherniak, on LinkedIn, or click the link in the podcast.
Jeffrey Matthews Financial Group, member FINRA, SIPC. I'm in the studio today with Josh and Jared Higginbotham. They're running Bayou Cora Farms. They sell an heirloom corn grown here in South Alabama. They found it in the freezer that was been set aside many, many years ago, decided to give it a try, planted 98 kernels, 96 of them grew up. Today they're planting 60 acres of this stuff right now and have found a market for it. And it's a wonderful story. I've got a bag of their grits next to me, which I will be giving to family and friends as a Christmas gift. If you're a friend of mine, act surprised when I give this to you. And it's a wonderful story. These are the stories that I love to find. Prior to the break, I asked the question to Jared, what has surprised you about this process? And I want Josh to answer the question now. Josh, you guys have been at this for several years now. What's surprised you about all this?
Well, actually, I'd have to go back to 2020. We had the privilege of being featured in Southern Living. our farm was featured in there. And so a little bit of the backstory about that, the article came out right after Sally hit. And so on the Gulf Coast, that hit us pretty bad. We had no power, we had no internet connection, and we were unaware that the article dropped in the magazine that week. And so as soon as we got power turned back on, we got the router and the internet, we had orders coming in.
Oh, no kidding.
Nonstop. And so we were getting hundreds of orders a day for our online orders, and we were not prepared at that. And so I think that the amount of interest that came from that article surprised me, because there were people all over the United States who started ordering off our website and were interested in our product. And I was thinking that it might have some interest, but not quite what it turned out to be. And it was amazing to see that.
It sounds like a common theme from the two of you right now when it comes to surprise is the interest that you guys, when you began planting this product, weren't aware. Perhaps you were aware of the non-GMO movement out there. But once you kind of cracked the door and let people see what you were doing, you were overwhelmed with how interested people are, both the end user as well as the restaurants. Is that true?
That's correct, yeah.
Where's it going to go? Let's talk about your future. Where's it going to go? So you got 60-something acres planted. I know you'd love to have 1,000 acres planted. It would only mean that business has gone real well. Talk to me about what you see for the future.
What we see, I guess, on the retail side is to be in more store locations for people to have access to us. We love the online orders, and that's what's gotten us to where we are now. But to take that next leap forward to where, we don't have to do all of that and from start to finish is going to be a big step for us.
Yeah. Josh, what about the future? What do you see?
Yeah, I think that if we can get in more retail stores, it gives customers who might not come across us in, magazine or publication or searching the internet, they might just see us on a grocery store shelf and they think, okay, that's something I might be interested in. Let me try that. And also going forward with restaurants, we love our restaurant partners. They promote us. They put our name on the menu if they cook our grits or cornmeal or use the flour. And so I think expanding that part of our business will be great for us. We're in restaurants all the way from New Orleans to Jacksonville, Florida now, and I'd love to be in restaurants all across the United States if that's possible.
So this is a similar story to the craft beer story. The craft beer story began now. There was a lot more regulations. I assume you have some regulations, but there are a lot of regulations around craft beer, and particularly the state of Alabama where we live, trying to get them approved here. But what happened in the craft beer industry, and I'm going to summarize the little that I know about it, is the popularity took off, and then the big beer companies came in and said, we're going to buy you. We love it that you're a cute little brewery. We love your efforts there. There's a lot of profit in it, and we're going to swoop in and buy you. And now Anheuser-Busch, let's say, owns a number of craft breweries. They don't change the name. They still allow it to brew under that name, but they're now looking over you. Is there the potential that one of these major cornmeal companies, great companies, and I'm trying to think of the name of them, I'd recognize the labels as I walk down the grocery store aisle, learns about you and says, hey, these guys got something going on here. The GMO movement is very strong in the nation right now. We're kind of competing with them. Why don't we just go ahead and swoop them up? Is it something that you've considered? Private equity reached out to you? Anything like that?
Nobody's reached out to us. I think that that's definitely a possibility that we could be approached if we continue to grow bigger. I think the thing for us is, our grandfather got us introduced to farming. He farmed his entire life, and he still works on the farm with us now. So it's very close to our hearts.
Yes.
The community and the family values of the farm. It's been in our family. So I don't think that we would ever want to give that away. Because, we have a lot of the family members that work with us in the processing room and on the retail side. So that's always going to be close to us. And I don't think we would ever want to give that away or not have control over the family farm, because that's also one of our big selling points. People think, family farm, local, we take our time. We enjoy working on the farm and we love our product. So we take a lot of interest in it. And so we want to make sure that every bag that we send out, people are getting quality product.
What about labor, farm labor? So many of the conversations this show has these days is about we can't find enough people. Are you all able to find the number of people you need to get the job done?
Right now, we're using family members. So we all hands on decks. Like I said earlier, we call anybody in the family that's available and free, and we put them to work.
And is it the fall is the biggest time of the year, I assume, harvest time?
It is. Harvest time is by far our busiest time. We plant in the spring, and that's pretty busy itself, but we harvest the corn around September, October, and then we run it through our cleaners and processors. And so that's definitely our busiest time.
Baldwin County in Alabama, where you live, is the fastest growing county in the state of Alabama. Are you having a hard time finding more acreage to plant or buy or to lease?
That's a huge challenge that we have. We do still have family members that farm conventionally, farm big. They state that they're probably losing about 100 to 200 acres a year that they have to go back and find.
Say that again. They're losing?
About 100 to 200 acres a year to development.
So the developer comes in and says, we'll take this corner of your property and we're going to put a neighborhood on it. And it's hard to say no to that.
Yeah, it is. And it's hard for, the families that, especially the farm families that have been struggling off and on for years, to tell them, don't do that. We need the farmland, but they can, set themselves up right. So it's hard to tell them to do that. So
do you drive up and down the roads of Baldwin County and look for farming land that you can jump into?
Yeah. And like we said earlier, it's harder for us because we do have to keep our corn.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So we can't just have, most of our fields are kind of scattered around to where we can work within, the realms of keeping it away from other corn.
Is it a part of the GMO culture to and by culture I mean the beliefs of the non-GMO crowd? If they found out, for example, that your corn was farmed adjacent to a bigger commercial corn, they would say, you guys are cheating, you're lying, you're not towing the line of a non-GMO product. Would they come out and they'd pick at you and they'd tie themselves to your farming equipment or whatever? I'm being facetious here. But is it a part of the code to grow it separately and far away?
It is, so it doesn't cross-pollinate. I mean, we haven't had anybody picketing in the front of the farm that I know of, but I mean, that's part of it. But that's part of our commitment to the product itself too, that, we're trying to do what needs to be done to make sure that we keep our corn and especially the variety intact.
We're coming up to the end of our interview here. Is there a customer that comes to mind that is truly gushed over what they found that really makes you proud of what you do?
There's been a bunch. I mean, there's a lot, especially with the ones that came out after the Southern Living article from all over the country. They were, I guess a lot of them said, we've been looking for something like this. And there are other, companies across the country that do that. How
can people find you? There's someone out there listening going, where do I find this stuff? How do they find you?
The easiest way to find us is our website, BayouCoraFarms.com.
BayouCoraFarms.com. If you want the link, I'll have it in the podcast notes of this show. Go to What's Working Cam, where you'll find the podcast if you're listening on the radio. And I'll put a link in there to their website, and you can check all this stuff out. Folks, I had the grits around Thanksgiving. My wife and I cooked them. We were very discerning, and I bought 30 bags as a result. That should tell you enough. It's good stuff. Gentlemen, Josh and Jared, thank you so much for your time. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be back after this break with segment 5 and final comments. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston.
I'm Joey Mason. For 4 years, my goal has been to produce the best farm-to-table products I'd ever eaten. I've done just that at our on-site USDA facility in Grand Bay, Alabama, allowing us to ship directly to your door. This is true farm-to-table. Visit us at masonhillsfarm.com to see all that we have to offer.
BayouCoraFarms.com. Again, I'll say it, BayouCoraFarms.com. That's the website for Josh and Jared's corn products. That's heirloom corn, so very good. And you'll see the story that's on the website. They offer some recipes that they use with the corn on the website. I'm looking at it right now. And you can also obviously order there. I'm pushing them because I like their story and I like their product. And they're two guys that are out there just just trying to do right, just trying to create a business for themselves, trying to learn from mistakes of the past in anticipation of growing. I've heard many stories about that first order from a big organization like a Walmart that we mentioned in the show, or like a Publix, which is, if you're in the Southeast, you'll recognize Publix supermarkets, one of the big ones in the Southeast, that it's always kind of a dream to get these orders, to get distribution from organizations like this. But when that order comes in, it's quite a bear to fill that thing. You're used to onesie-twosie things, small orders, online orders, something like that, and suddenly you get an order for a massive quantity that you've never had to create and assemble before. You've dreamed of this day, and now it's happened, and how are you going to get it done? The expression on their faces when they were telling about that order and the first Publix order, as well as when the article hit out of Southern Living and their orders came in, it was fun to watch them tell that story, relive those moments of blessed pandemonium, if you will. And I absolutely love these stories. As you can tell, these are the stories that I love to find and support these types of guys. Anyway, BayouCoraFarms.com. Give them a try. I hope you'll enjoy the product, and search out perhaps those restaurants in New Orleans that are selling them and let them know. Those restaurants know, oh, I heard an interview with these guys, and they're good guys, and came here to try some of their product. All right. That'll wrap us up this week. Let me tell you what's going on out there right now, folks, with the What's Working show. If you have any interest, we have grown rapidly. As I say this right now, we're in 20 markets across the United States. Beginning in the early September, we were in 6 or 8. So we've decided to try to pour some gas on the fire and see what we can do with this. And does this show after 6 years have any traction? And we're glad to report that this content about growing businesses, about struggles that business owners are facing, about real candid conversations about mistakes they made and successes that they had and what surprised them. Not a deep dive into the dollars and cents of their business. We don't discuss P&Ls. We don't discuss balance sheets, anything like that. We talk about the stories of the businesses and their growth objectives. Try to be positive. It's not Pollyanna. It's not motivational. It's, hey, we got through hurdles. Let me tell you my business story that got me through these difficult hurdles. And folks, I think the appetite for that type of content in our society today is there. And I think that it's evidenced by the fact that we've been picked up now by, 12 different stations since the 1st of September, with more coming on. So if you're new to the show, thank you so much for listening. I hope you'll become a regular listener. You can find these shows at what'sworkingcam.com, where you can hear 6 years worth of content in the background if you wish to do so. And our plans are to keep going. We'll have another show next week. Have a good week, everybody. As you likely know, this show originates as a radio show broadcast across the state of Alabama, and it continues to grow in both radio listeners and market. After it's formatted for radio, we then turn it into this podcast. Please share it with those you think would find it interesting, and subscribe to the podcast on my YouTube page, where you can leave messages and your thoughts and your comments, and I'll certainly get back in touch. Finally, if you're a fan of the show, please offer a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can find my book called What Works on Amazon.com. In it, I highlight the top 10 ideas from the first 200 episodes of the show. Mind you, they're not the top 10 best episodes, they're the top 10 best ideas. Many times the same ideas are brought up again and again by different guests, and we dig into those ideas in such a way that they'll be easily applicable for your business. Simply go to Amazon and enter my name, and you'll find What Works as well as my other books. Chapter titles include How to Find a Niche, Innovation, Building Teams, and so forth. To learn more about the workshops and seminars I offer, go to cammarston.com. There you can view clips of my work, view workshop titles, view my reviews, case studies, customer lists. It's all there. If you'd like a free copy of one of the chapters of my book, enter your email address at the bottom of the homepage at cammarston.com. And from that site, you can email me directly. I always love to hear from you. You'll also find me on social media. Find Cam Marston on all the social media platforms, and you may need to enter the numeral 1. There's one other Cam Marston out there. And that numeral 1 distinguishes me from him from time to time. So if you're unsure if it's me or not, enter that numeral 1 after my name and it should do the trick. On a more personal and less professional side, I record weekly commentaries that air across Alabama on Alabama Public Radio twice each day on Fridays called Keeping It Real. They've won statewide and national awards. They're simple observations on the world as it goes on around me, and they're only a few minutes long. They're a passion. You can find them on the same podcast app you're using to listen to this. Finally, if you're interested in advertising on this podcast or the radio show, reach out. I've worked hard to cultivate a specific listener, and I can tell you all about them, and I have many different options for helping you reach them. Thanks again for listening. We'll have another episode available soon.